So there was a point in my life that I was addicted to motivational videos. I would watch them, I'd get so excited, so motivated, I'd be so productive for 30 minutes, and then I would stop being productive, and I would have to watch another motivational video. And in this video, I want to talk to you about how motivation isn't the answer, and how discipline may be the answer, but it may also not be the answer, and what I think we should be doing first instead of motivation or discipline. And I'm gonna be using one of my favorite games, Minecraft, to explain all of this. And this is day 4 of the 7-day mental reset challenge. If you haven't already, click the link in the description and go back to start with day 1 so that we can fully reset our minds at the end of 2020. And also click the link in the description to enroll officially in the challenge to get worksheets and bonuses as well. It's completely optional, but I recommend you do it because there's a worksheet at the end of this video. Now, when a lot of people are unproductive, if you ask them why, they say, well, I'm just not motivated. But there's a massive problem with this. Motivation is not something that we can control. We can't directly control our emotions, which means if we base our productivity off of something we can't control, there'll be times that we're motivated and therefore times we're productive, but there'll also be times that we're not motivated and therefore times that we aren't productive. If we base our productivity off something we can't control, then we can't control when we're productive and when we're not. And this is going to result in living life a little bit like a roller coaster. This is what my life was like for years. You make progress towards your goals, you're excited, you're disciplined, you're sticking to all your habits, and then you slip back into old habits. You go up and down again and again and again. We've got to view motivation like a sprinter. It's great for getting things done, but we know that you can't keep sprinting forever. There's going to be a time you run out of stamina and the motivation will go, and we've got to try and build our productivity off of something else. Another problem is that a lot of people view productivity like emotion comes first and then motion follows. So we feel motivated, the emotion of motivation, and then we're productive. Emotion, then motion. But in reality, it's often the other way around. If you get yourself to act, you have motion first, then emotion will follow. And I get a ton of messages from people in the procrastination program, to the comments, to emails of people saying, I'm not motivated to exercise. I really want to exercise, but for whatever reason, when it comes down to it, I end up coming up with excuses. I don't do the things I should be doing. But there's a big mistake here. Because if they truly weren't motivated, they wouldn't email me. They just wouldn't do it. So they're motivated enough to email me, which proves their problem isn't motivation, their problem is action. And if you try and solve an action problem as if it's a motivation problem, you're going to make no progress, because you have to solve a motivation problem completely the opposite of how you solve an action problem. You see, to get motivated, the solution to that is through thought. You get excited for the outcome, you hype yourself up, you think this is going to be incredible, think of all of the different incredible things that are going to come when I do this. But thought, the solution to motivation, is the problem with action. Thought is often the reason why we don't act. Just think about it. You come up with excuses. You come up with reasons why you shouldn't act. You overthink, you worry, you start to worry about the outcome. You worry you're gonna fail. So whilst thought is the solution to motivation, it's the problem for action, and we must separate those things. So this water right here represents action. And as you can see, the water isn't moving, so no action is being taken. Here's a sign, you can do it, it's a motivation. What does the motivation do? It results in action. Oh no, the action's gone. Click it again. Oh, action, oh, and it's gone. So in order to consistently be productive using motivation, we consistently having to be getting ourselves motivated. So instead, you want to base your productivity on something you can control. Because when you base your productivity on something you can control, then you can control it and decide to make it constant. You can decide to consistently be productive day in and day out instead of going through these fluctuations. So the whole point of this video is to make the shift from relying your productivity on something you can't control to something you can control, because that's how we can get constant productivity. Now, a lot of people, when they think and they really understand that motivation isn't the cure, they go straight to discipline. They think motivation is bad, so discipline must be the answer. There's some big faces in this industry like JOCKO or David Goggins that go on relentlessly about discipline. And discipline's good. And discipline's good because we can control it a little bit more than we can control motivation. over time we can strengthen our discipline, a little bit like it's a muscle. We can improve at the skill of being disciplined. And that's great because over time, if we base our productivity on discipline, we can over time become more productive. And it's good to not depend all of our productivity on emotions. It's good to be able to have the skill to say, no matter how I feel, I'm going to do this anyway. I don't care if I'm motivated, I don't care if I'm excited, I am going to get this done. It's a great skill to have in life because there's always going to be times where you have to do things that you don't want to do to get to where you want to get to. That's just a fact. So it's a really good skill to have. But there's been 3 fascinating scientific breakthroughs when it comes to the topic of discipline or willpower. The first was done by Bowmaster in 1990. He got 2 groups of people and he put in front of both of them radishes and cookies. He told one group you can eat the cookie and he told the second group you must resist the cookies and only eat the radishes. Once that was done, he took both of the groups and he put them in a separate room and gave them a puzzle to try and solve. But what the participants of the study didn't know was this puzzle was impossible. And what they were trying to figure out was how long it would take each group of people until they would give up and say, I can't do this puzzle. And what they found was that the group that had eaten the cookies and didn't have to use any of their willpower resisting the cookies took an average of 19 minutes before they said, right, enough is enough, I can't solve this puzzle. The other group that had been using their willpower to avoid the cookies, resist the cookies, only lasted 8 minutes before they gave up. The conclusion that Bowmaster came to was that by resisting your willpower from the cookies, you had less willpower to use when solving the puzzle. So over time, your willpower is finite. And if you use your willpower loads throughout the day, then you're not going to have much left throughout the rest of the day. And this shows a problem with using discipline instead of motivation. Bowmaster suggests we don't have an infinite amount of discipline, so we can use our productivity and base it on discipline, but maybe by the end of the day, or maybe if we're consistently using our discipline every single day, then our productivity is going to wane when our discipline or willpower wanes. But a newer study done by Carol Dweck very recently concluded there was a massive flaw in Bowmaster's study. She ran similar experiments and came to very different conclusions. The conclusion she came to was that willpower is finite, but it's only finite if you believe willpower is finite. You see, she surveyed the groups of people and asked them, do you believe willpower is finite, or do you believe that willpower is infinite? And the groups that believed that willpower was finite, it was finite for them. After they used their willpower, with the next test they had less willpower. But the groups that didn't believe that actually found that they had a consistent amount of willpower day in and day out, no matter what was used beforehand. So it's not our willpower is finite, but it's our perception that willpower is finite that makes it finite. Very similar to what we discovered about stress on day 1 of this challenge. But again, a new study was conducted that actually offers a different perspective on willpower from the 2 previously. This was done at the University of Toronto, and they concluded that willpower isn't finite. Willpower is actually an emotion. Just like how we don't run out of joy, we don't run out of anger, we don't run out of willpower. These researchers said that sometimes we have willpower and other times we don't. Just like sometimes we're happy and other times we're not happy. Hold on a second. If this is true and willpower is an emotion, surely willpower is very similar to motivation, which as we know is an emotion. So if willpower is a sprinter, I like to view discipline as a cyclist. Yes, you can go further on discipline. And yes, over time, if you consistently use your discipline, you can strengthen it. You can practice your discipline. But by no means is it a bulletproof way for us to be productive.
Discipline, on the other hand, is more like a lever. You can click it, action, 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 action. But as we know, eventually, there's going to be times that we're not feeling disciplined, we don't have willpower, the emotion of willpower is not there, and the action stops. So this is like willpower.
So at this point, we know that motivation and discipline aren't the answers. They're not bad, and by no means am I saying you should never use motivation or never use discipline. The Buddha says we've got to be very careful not to fall into extremes, and this is the perfect example. What I'm providing as the solution to this isn't the only solution. It's just what I believe you should do first, as well as discipline or motivation. With that being said, the path of least resistance explains what I'm about to say. So the path of least resistance is a principle that can be seen in many different fields, from psychology to even physics. If we look at electricity, we know if there's two different ways for the electricity to go, it's going to take the path of least resistance. It's going to go the way that's easier. And if we look at wolves, over time, the reason wolves became dogs was because of the path of least resistance. Wolves started getting fed scraps by humans, and then the wolves realized it's easier to be fed by humans and to surround yourself with humans than it is to go out and hunt. And over time, wolves kept taking the path of least resistance, the easy option, and then they became tamed. So the path of least resistance is everywhere. It's something that humans are built to take. Why would we do something difficult when there's something easy there? Why would we walk 10 miles to get some food if there's some food right next to us? We'll eat that first. And this is by no means a flaw. It's why we've got to where we are. We're not just going to expend energy for the sake of expending energy. But when a lot of people think of self-awareness, they think of self-awareness of the individual. But perhaps a better way to become self-aware is by becoming aware of the problems of mankind. Because if there's a problem with human nature, then chances are you've got that problem as well. And although the path of least resistance isn't necessarily a flaw, it results in a ton of different problems that we have in our day-to-day life. So becoming aware of the fact that humans take the path of least resistance, we can start to leverage this. Because imagine if you were going to take the things that you should be doing on a day-to-day basis, potentially it's your daily routine or your morning routine previously, and instead of trying to use motivation or discipline to force yourself to do these things, what if they were the easiest thing to do? What if they were the default option? If that was the case, you wouldn't need motivation and you wouldn't need discipline to do these things. So what if we can make the things you should be doing easy? And what if we were to make the things you shouldn't be doing the path of most resistance, the most difficult thing for you to do? If that was the case, the likelihood of you doing those things drops massively. And the crazy thing is, this is kind of all or nothing. If you have a river and all of a sudden there's an easier option for the river to take, all of the water is going to go down that easier option. So if you can make something marginally easier for you to do, suddenly all of your actions are going to follow that path. So by changing your environment just subtly, just a little bit, minor tweaks, all of a sudden all of your behavior can be funneled into a different way. And it is very interesting to me that both Jocko Willink and David Goggins, the two people that recommend that you should use discipline, both of them had massive military backgrounds. And when you're doing military training, the only thing you can do to get through them is rely on discipline. There's no way you can get up and just change the environment. There's no way that you can just make the course easier for yourself. So the only thing that they can recommend is discipline, because that's what they've experienced. But yes, I'm not saying discipline is bad, but before we have to rely on it, we should just go and change the environment to make the things that we want to be doing simple, make the things we want to be doing easy, and that way we can do them consistently. And I use the word consistently intentionally. I don't care about whether something's easy. I'm happy to do difficult things. I've done difficult things many, many times in my life, very difficult things. But I care more about consistency, because when we're able to be consistent, we're consistently able to make progress towards our goals, whether that's resetting or whether that's being productive. And when we manipulate our environment most, then we're able to conserve our willpower, discipline, and motivation for when we really need it, instead of using it on tasks that we don't need to use it on, so that when we need to use it, we don't have much of it left.
If we come over here, ignore these guys. And as we can see, there's some stuff here. So, what happens if we put some water down? As you can see, action is happening, but it's all over the place. You're going towards social media, you're going towards the wrong work, you're getting distracted all over the place. And yeah, you are doing some work that you should be doing, but it's a little bit all over the place. Instead, if we take this up and we manipulate the environment, a very subtle change to the environment, we delete just one block, and we put the action right back where it should be going. All of a sudden, all of your action is very focused. You're not getting distracted. So a very subtle shift, just one block difference, one little shift to your environment can completely change the actions you're taking. That's why I think environment should come first, and motivation and discipline are good, but secondary after you've done your environment.
So now we're going to take this theory and put it into action. I recommend you get the worksheet so you can follow along and actually implement instead of just going through this theory and making it sound good. Once you've done that, step 1 is to walk around your environment, your house, your bedroom, your kitchen, everywhere that you spend a lot of time on, and make an audit of everything. Just write down all of the different things that are in your environment. You've got a bed, you've got a computer, you've got a TV, write it all down. Now what you've got to do is you've got to think about your daily routine. Keep in mind all of the different actions that you want to be taking on a day-to-day basis. And the third step is to think, is each object in my environment making it easier for me to do my daily routine, or is it making it more difficult? Is it a distraction? Once you've done that, everything that's making it easier, you've got to think about it. And you've got to try and add more things that are going to make it easier. And everything that's taking away, making it more difficult, you've got to remove it. You've got to do whatever you can to get rid of it. The step after that is there's going to be some things on your list that are both positive and negative, a phone or a computer. It can both add to your daily routine if you've got to do work, but it can also distract you. You can go on Facebook. What you've got to do here is you've got to narrow it down. You've got to try think of a way, how can I get rid of Facebook whilst keeping the productive elements? How can I make the good things easier even in the subset of a computer and make the bad things more difficult? In this example, you could get Newsfeed Eradicator or Chrome extension, which is going to block your Facebook, and you can have Google Docs or whatever you work in automatically pop up on your computer to make the good things easy and the bad things more difficult. And once you've done that, let the YouTube algorithm know that you want to see the rest of the videos in this series by subscribing if you're new and liking the video and commenting saying environment. That way the YouTube algorithm is going to push you more videos onto your homepage. And I'm so excited to get into Eastern philosophy, which we're covering tomorrow. I'll see you there.